Hello, and let's talk about the attack on the Life Insurance Corporation of India. Why is it an attack? Because in this budget, the government has decided to privatize the LIC, an almost iconic establishment for millions of Indians. Almost everyone we know either has an LIC policy or knows someone who has taken a policy. A key aspect of the credibility this institution enjoyed was that it was owned by the state and was in some sense a part of a commitment by the state to its citizens. Why is the government doing this, and what are the implications going to be? Before we discuss this further, here is a quick set of facts about the LIC and the overall direction of privatization in this budget. The Life Insurance Corporation of India was founded in 1956 after the government passed the Life Insurance of India Act 1956, which nationalized the insurance industry. Over 240 insurance companies were merged to form the state-owned LIC. LIC is the largest insurance company in the country with assets of over 31 lakh crore. It has over 1.2 lakh employees and gave a dividend of Rs 2,600 crore last year. The government plans to sell part of its stake in the LIC through an initial public offering or an IPO. This is part of the government's disinvestment target of Rs 2.1 lakh crore for the financial year 2020-21. The target for the current year, that's 2019-2020, was Rs 1.05 lakh crore, of which 65,000 crore is supposed to be achieved as per revised estimates. The bid to privatize the insurance sector began during the Narasimha Rao government when a committee was set up for the purpose. In 2000, during the Vajpayee regime, a bill was passed which allowed the entry of players into the life insurance sector, private players into the life insurance sector. As of now, there are around 25 companies in the Indian insurance market, but LIC remains the dominant player. The move has been opposed by LIC employees who held a strike against this announcement on 4th February. To discuss more about this, we have with us analyst Paranjoy Guha Thakurta. Hello, Paranjoy.
Hello, Prasanth.
Paranjoy, first of all, do you have an LIC policy?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
And so does my wife, so do my children.
Right.
Yes. I mean, that's not unusual because a little more than 1 out of 5 Indians have a policy with the Life Insurance Corporation of India.
Yeah.
I mean, at last count, they had somewhere in the region, over 290 million, that's 29 crore.
Right.
Perhaps somewhere between 29 and 30 crore policy holders exist.
Right. So we've long passed the stage where we thought that privatization was the solution to all our economic problems, although the government continues to believe so. And the usual argument that used to be cited was that it's a loss-making enterprise, so it may make sense if you privatize it. But I don't think you can apply that argument to LIC. So
not
why is
at all.
this happening?
Far from it. Firstly, the government is going to say, for the record, we're not privatizing it. We're just going to sell a small stake of the government's holding in the Life Insurance Corporation. Far from being a loss-making corporation, the Life Insurance Corporation, with the dominant share of the market for life insurance policies in this country, is a profitable entity, a highly profitable entity.
Right.
It holds major stakes in some of the best known companies in India.
Right.
The so-called blue chips on the stock markets, the companies which are part of the sensitive index, the Nifty, right. Just to name a few of these companies, ITC, Reliance Industries Limited, Larsen and Toubro, ICICI Bank, the State Bank of India, which is also India's biggest bank. So it's not only that it is a major stakeholder in some of the biggest companies in the country, the government uses the Life Insurance Corporation's money in very devious ways to boost the stock market.
Right.
And because it's such a major player, I'll give you an example. On the day the budget was presented by Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman,
right.
The markets tanked. This is Saturday, the 1st of February. And everybody said, wait and watch. Monday, sure enough. Tuesday, sure enough, the markets revived.
Right.
How did they revive? It revived because there were investment by domestic financial institutions, of which arguably the biggest is the Life Insurance Corporation of India. So,
so it's not that suddenly the market decided that the budget was actually good after all.
That's a matter of speculation. Right. But as you rightly pointed out, it has over 30 lakh crores, 30 trillion rupees And this money at the end of the day belongs to the people of India, like you and me, as you said, where we started. You know, almost about 30 crore Indians have this money. It's not only that. I would say the LIC in the past has not only been used, it's been misused to meet the government's disinvestment targets.
Right.
The classic case was when the Oil and Natural Gas Corporation, whenever you find that these public sector disinvestment programs are happening and the response from the market is not what was expected, sure enough, the LIC comes in.
Right.
Another bank, which was in doldrums, which is in a bad shape, IDBI Bank, which was once the Industrial Development Bank of India, it's now more than 50%, 51% is now held by the LIC. Right. It's a separate matter, whether an insurer can also be holding a bank, but there are some legal issues relating to that, but that's another story altogether.
Right. So, in very practical terms, in layman's terms, layperson's terms, so to speak, what is the most direct implication that you see from this move?
This government is desperately short of money. I should go and say further that it's figures. Very few people believe the credibility of the government's official statistics are arguably at one of their lowest ever in the history of this country. So whether it be revenue collection, whether it be disinvestment targets, you talked about the disinvestment target. In the financial year, which is going to end on the 31st of March, the target was over 1 lakh crores. Now the government, the revised estimates at 65,000 crores. But honestly, I doubt whether that target is, how credible that target is, whether it will be achieved. Now, if it is to come anywhere near the target of over 2 lakh crores, 210,000 crores, that means 210,000 followed by 7 zeros. I mean, imagine 2 followed by 12 zeros. That's a huge amounts of money.
Right.
There's no way the government can even get this kind of money unless they end up selling the shares of the Life Insurance Corporation, other major companies like Bharat Petroleum. Now, what does this mean? The government is taking money, selling assets that belong to the people of this country. And what is it using this money from? Now, you're saying we're going to use this for infrastructure, we're going to use it. But all this money gets into the Consolidated Fund of India. How that consolidated fund is used, for what purpose, whether it's used to pay for bureaucrat salaries or ministers' trips, I mean, abroad, everything all gets subsumed into this huge fund called the Consolidated Fund of India. Now, when Mr. Vajpayee, you mentioned Mr. Vajpayee's government, when the government for the first time allowed private players in life insurance. I mean, between 1956 all the way, I mean, that's what Nehru's time, when the government merged and acquired over 240 insurance companies and privately owned what are called provident societies. Till 2000, the LIC had a monopoly. Then that monopoly, you allowed a large number of players to come in, but the LIC by far remains the most dominant player. Now, by selling your stake in it, you're going to get some short-term gain. But what are you going to use this money for? I mean, I'm tempted to use a very colorful phrase that was used by the leader of the Labour Party, where Margaret Thatcher used to, she was at her peak and she was privatizing everything with a vengeance. This is James Callaghan. He used a famous word: don't sell the family silver to pay the butler. Regretfully, I think what the government of India is doing exactly that. It's selling assets, it's selling the family's assets.
The country's assets.
Yeah, we're not sure how this money is going to be used. I mean, to keep that analogy to of a family there, if you're using it to build an extension to your home, if you're going to use it for your daughter's education, you can justify it. But if you're going to use it to pay the butler or for your grocery bills, well, that's not the way public money should be used. Regretfully, the government seems to be embarking on this path.
And finally, it's also interesting you mentioned this, because we've also, and if you look at the budget, as you pointed out in some of your early interviews, there's actually been a decline in spending on many of the schemes.
On the social sector, on rural development, on healthcare, on education. And the government's fudging its figures. The most recent case, which was pointed out by India Today, there was a mismatch in the figures given in the PDF document of the Ministry of Health and the Excel sheet that was put out. And mysteriously, these numbers suddenly change and suddenly there's no discrepancy. I mean, what is this? Do journalists have to point out to North Block and all the babus that get your act correct? I mean, get your figures right. I mean, regretfully, at one level, here is the government saying, the credibility of the government's numbers are fine. You have an entire chapter devoted in the economic survey saying, no, we are continuing to grow at the rate we say we are growing. But again and again, the credibility of those government's numbers are really very, very low. People don't believe them, government anymore.
Right. And finally, for an average policy holder, what are the implications when LIC slowly starts becoming a private institution, especially considering the record of the other private institutions?
At this point of time, I am hopeful nothing is going to happen to the ordinary. It's a bigger macroeconomic issue.
Right.
It's a bigger issue of economic policy, economic ideology. At the end of the day, this government is unable to revive the economy. It's unable to create jobs.
Right.
It seems to have no ideas what to do to revive investments, to create jobs, to get the economy out of this terrible situation it is in at present. So I think that's where this money is going to be used. And I keep my fingers crossed, the ordinary policy holder of the LIC won't be affected.
Right. Thank you so much, Paranjoy.
My pleasure.
As we saw, the employees of Life Insurance Corporation are not happy at all with this move. Here is what officials of the All India Insurance Employees Association had to say.
So what we urge through this demonstration, the Finance Minister as well as the Government of India, not to proceed with the sale of LIC shares. As an initial response, we are going on a 1 hour walkout strike between 12 and 1. It is going to be a long drawn struggle. We have to convince them to desist from this activity. So our campaign will continue. This is the third time government is trying to sell the shares. Last two times by our campaign we have forced the government to desist from this activity. So even now we are going to launch a series of campaign, and that is going to happen in another 2 or 3 months. We hope when the people's opinion is together with us, the government will heed our voice and they will desist from the selling the shares of LIC, which is anti-national, anti-people.
We now move to another aspect of the budget, sports, where some truly strange things have been happening in the name of Kalo India. To speak more about this, we have with us analyst Gautum Navlakha. Gautam, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Prasanth.
First of all, I doubt many of our viewers actually know what Kalo India is. So could you just give us a quick description of what it is?
Kalo India Play India was a very good idea to begin with to promote sports amongst school-going kids, which was a welcome change. And the government idea was that this would encourage mass participation and create sports culture in country, which we lack. That is how it started. The first year in 2018, when the first round of Kalo India took place, it was meant for children under 17, and it was confined to school students. In subsequent years, Kalo India's whole concept has undergone a transformation. It's become a youth-oriented, where the age limit has been raised to 21 to include junior as well as university students. So the whole conception has changed. The reason I'm saying it is that if you look at it from the human resource development idea, where sports is very, integral to development. It's as important as rest of your curriculum for inculcating some basic essential ideas about tolerance, harmony, fair play, and just sheer enjoyment of the sports. And from amongst those enthusiasts would emerge the talent that could win India medals. What has happened is that Kalo India is a government program to begin with, which is geared towards finding medal winners for India, not to spread sports culture, not to develop, expand, create in any way sports culture. It's to look for talented youngsters whom the government can provide stipend so that India can win more and more medals. Which is self-defeating because it doesn't serve the purpose of, if the whole idea of sports is to nurture the children, to make them into an all-round human beings who are both physically fit, health conscious, and can play and work with different kinds of people, because that's what sports teaches and encourages us to do. So this is becoming now like some kind of a campaign to showcase that India is going to become a leading medal winner in the world. So it's the same old thing that we are getting into. It's the government's own image building exercise. It seems that is guiding the Kalo India program. I wish it was done the other way around, that they'd stuck to the original vision, which was to encourage school-going kids. Especially given the context of the socio-economic inequalities that exist in the country, where large number of kids, in fact 90 to 95% of kids cannot avail of any sports facilities close by, don't have access to parks or sports facilities close to their house, which they can avail of without having to pay a fee, which is a huge thing. So it's becoming now, we are going back to
It's become a very narrow focus thing. So what about this budget? So we understand that there has been much more focus on Kalo India as a project in this budget. And so what does it come at the expense of?
Obviously, it comes at the expense of the registered society, which is Sports Authority of India, which is tasked with the responsibility of developing, nurturing, and creating a culture, a sports culture. Now, if there was any problem with Sports Authority of India, by all means, try and improve them, reform it, expand it, pour in more money to create more facilities, rather than create a government structure which is meant to stage events and find talents quickly so that we can win. So there is no long-term idea, which is where we have to invest. And the second thing is the amount of money in any case which is allocated for sports is abysmally low. I mean, it's less than 3,000 crores, which is hardly anything. Even a country 1/20th the size of India, United Kingdom, spends 9,000 crores on its 70 million people, whereas for 1.3 billion people, we spend less than 3,000 crores. And it comes to what? 3 paisa per head? Which is pathetic.
So, as far as the sports policy in general is concerned, you mentioned how we are looking at basically, this seems like more of a special utility vehicle. Kalo India seems more like that sort of a vehicle, which is just focused on, say, looking at medals per se. So does the sports community per se have any sort of response, or has there been any mobilizing or organizing around this as far as pushing back is concerned?
I'm not aware of it right now, but I'm sure a lot of people must be thinking along the same lines. Even those who believe in medal hunt and promoting search for medalists, potential medal winners and things like that, will not disagree that without having mass participation in sports where people enjoy also and participate for sheer pleasure of playing also. Young kids require, if you want to develop your next generation, you require to encourage sports along with other subjects that they're taught. But for adults, it's very useful as even a stress buster. I mean, I can talk about myself. Even at my age, I enjoy either watching or doing something, some movement, some motion, some running or something which keeps me fit, and it's also a good stress buster.
Exactly. And it's also especially unfortunate because in a country where only one sport, especially cricket, gets this amount of money, you would want the government to step in and spend more so that other sports also, and there's a much wider culture that we see around.
So that all the concentration, all the focus doesn't get concentrated alone on cricket, which is, I mean, I enjoy cricket, so I would not mind watching a lot of cricket. But the point is, other sports cannot be neglected just because there is just one sport that we play to any degree of, excellence that one talks about. But other sports have to be developed. And they are cheaper to encourage. There are sports and which encourage people to play together, to work together. My friend Anand Patwardhan came out with a wonderful poster, I remember in 1980s, which said that if you can play together, you can live together. And this message, I think in our times, at the times that we live in, is a very powerful message.
Thank you so much, Gautam. That's all we have for this episode of Let's Talk. Before we leave you, here is a public safety announcement. If your name is Kunal Kamra and you're not the comedian, you should watch out when you're booking an airline ticket, because it seems like there's some sort of a witch hunt, so to speak, on people who are named Kunal Kamra who are booking tickets. We may be failing our sports persons, we may be failing our life insurance policy holders, but we sure are keeping a close watch on passenger lists. Some comfort. Keep watching NewsClick.